I'm Steve Mann, and welcome to You Can Make a Difference. I grew up on a small potato farm in Idaho, where I quickly learned the value of hard work and developed a desire to see and experience the world beyond the fence line. That curiosity shaped my life. Over the years, I've founded or co-founded 4 successful businesses and 4 humanitarian foundations. I've worked with U.S. presidents, built leadership programs, and moved my family across the world to fight HIV/AIDS in Africa, all by being a husband to my amazing wife and raising a beautiful, multiracial family. I've traveled to more than 50 countries, met countless people, and learned from many cultures. Along the way, like you, I've developed beliefs, principles, and values that matter deeply to me, which I want to pass on to my children, grandchildren, and beyond. That's what this channel is about. You Can Make a Difference explores how we pass on wisdom, not just information, by sharing our stories and life experiences. Today's younger generation doesn't need more data. They need context, perspective, and meaning. Stories help us humanize life, start meaningful conversations, and give the next generation the confidence and clarity they need to navigate a fast-changing world. I'm glad you're here. Today, we're going to explore the concepts of freedom and liberty. Now, if you announce this as a discussion topic with your grandchildren, or probably anyone else, you'd likely get yawns, or maybe a, sorry, but I've got to run. So instead, many years ago, in the 80s, I had the privilege of traveling to Berlin as part of the White House advance staff, prepping for a presidential visit for President Ronald Reagan. At that time, Berlin was divided. It had the East and the West and this huge, ugly, formidable wall in between. The wall had become the world's symbol of the stark differences between the oppressive Stalinist state in the East and freedom, opportunity, and democracy in the West. More than 140 people had been shot or otherwise killed trying to escape the tyranny of East Germany to cross the wall into freedom. The most famous crossing was called Checkpoint Charlie. I was fortunate to be there when President Reagan, during a dramatic visit to the checkpoint, he looked up toward the guards and said, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." It was an incredible event. The Secret Service was nervous, as you can imagine, as the president stepped into East Germany, and the East German guards weren't sure what they should do. It was a poignant moment, reminding us that freedom is not guaranteed for any of us. My grandkids could feel the emotion in my voice as I relayed this story. As you can imagine, the kids were filled with questions. Why were you there? Did they really kill people just for trying to cross the city? How big was that wall? Why was freedom so important to them? What was Berlin like then? Because of that story, I had the opportunity to answer their questions and discuss with them why freedom and liberty are important to me. I could also ask them what it means to them. What experiences of appreciating freedom have you had? What does freedom and liberty mean to you? Is this a concept you would like to pass on to your grandkids? Oh, by the way, a few years later, I was in Paris on business when I saw on the news hundreds of people from both East and West Berlin tearing down that wall. They were waving flags and with tears in their eyes, throwing down the stones from the top of the wall. I was so excited for them and wanted to stand with them. In fact, I tried to get a flight to Berlin to join them, but they were all totally booked. Here's another story that led to a discussion of liberty and freedom. One time in Singapore, I was meeting a Singaporean colleague for dinner. When I arrived at the restaurant, I found him already there reading a copy of the New York Times with tears in his eyes. I asked what was wrong, and he turned the paper around and pointed at the headlines about drugs, violent protests in the cities, and rising crime rates. He looked at me and said, "What are you doing? Don't you realize that you, meaning America, are our great hope to have freedom for ourselves?" Well, I had heard the stories and read lots of history, but not until then did I realize that freedom isn't just about what happens with our own borders. It's also about the hope we inspire in others around the world. I told him that in part due to its nature as a new democracy, America has always been contentious and at the forefront of everything new: medicine, economics, government, social issues, and technology. Often these new ideas had unexpected consequences, and that caused a lot of problem and upheaval. I then said, because we are a free and innovative country, we make a lot of mistakes. But being a free and innovative country also means that eventually we will work them through and come out stronger on the other side. I hope that I was right. But what about the prawns? My colleagues at this dinner ordered drunken prawns. I had no idea what to expect. First, they brought in a big glass pot and filled it with some kind of Chinese rice wine. Then they dropped in the live prawns, who crawled around during dinner until they were fully inebriated. Unfortunately for the prawns, the waiter then opened the lid, threw in a match, and voila, fried drunken prawns. It was quite a spectacular sight. The prawns don't really have much to do with this story, but they did make the night memorable. Perhaps it was the symbolism. The unsuspecting prawns having a great time until, poof, they were gone. As you can imagine, this story created lots and lots of questions. Most importantly, they wanted to know what the prawns tasted like and if they were really drunk. But other questions were ones like, could our democracy really disappear, poof, like the prawns? What are the alternatives to democracy? Are we at risk of losing our democracy like my friend feared? What has happened to the country since this dinner some 40 years ago? Now, when you hear this story, what kind of stories and experiences come to your mind? What are your thoughts about having and keeping a democracy? What are your experiences reflecting on democracy? What does the term democracy even mean? What do you think it would mean to your children, grandchildren, and maybe even great-grandchildren that you might never know to hear your stories and know what liberty and freedom mean to you? Now, you might say, well, I don't have stories like that. I haven't been to Berlin or Singapore. But that doesn't matter. You may have served in the military or attended a military funeral or even felt something in your heart when they played the national anthem. You might have written to a congressman or gone to a protest. You might have served at a polling place or watched something on television about a far-off country in civil war, or even watched the rioting in some of our own cities. You may have simply pondered being able to pursue your own dreams. Your grandkids don't need an extraordinary tale. They just want to know about something you did or felt and why. And that is enough to spark a discussion. One more story. On warm summer evenings in Washington, D.C., I would sometimes walk over from my hotel and sit on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, near that giant statue of Abraham Lincoln. It's a peaceful, reverent place, even with the jostling crowds of summer visitors. I love to look out across the mall at the towering Washington Monument and the Capitol building in the distance, and let the feel of America's ideal just wash over me. I could imagine being there during the anti-Vietnam protest when I was young, or the day Dr. King gave his I Have a Dream speech. I could look over at the names on the angled wall of the Vietnam Memorial and recognize the sacrifices from people I knew. Inside the Lincoln Memorial, engraved on the wall, I could read Lincoln's second inaugural address, calling on us to bind up the nation's wounds. To me, it is a sacred place. I would sit on those steps and ponder my favorite words from our Declaration of Independence, and those powerful words that for me sum up the ideal our founders envisioned from the very beginning, and that we continue to strive for. We believe that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, among which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I sometimes think if we all could just understand and appreciate these simple words, it was all we would really need to make the dream come true. Well, you can imagine the questions coming from this story. Some were pretty simple, like, what was so important about Lincoln? Why was he shot? Why do so many people gather on this mall? What was so important about those speeches? Did you really know soldiers who died in Vietnam? Others took a little more thought, like, why is that sentence from the Declaration of Independence so important to you? And what does it really mean? What are your experiences in understanding the feeling and meaning of democracy? What stories could you share that will lead to a discussion of freedom and liberty? You might find that your grandkids want to know more. If so, you might want to watch Invictus, a film about Nelson Mandela becoming president of South Africa. You might discuss what it would need for you to feel really free. You might think about what you could do to help others be more free. You might want to read the sentence from that Declaration of Independence and discuss it. Hopefully, these stories about freedom and liberty have inspired you to ponder the concepts and think about your own experiences. What are your stories? What do you think your grandchildren would have to say as you share your experiences with them? It's worth a try. Thank you. In our next episodes, we'll explore other attributes that have shaped our lives and how storytelling can make a real difference in the lives of others. We'll also be inviting guests from all walks of life to share their attributes and stories and how they've tried to pass them on to a younger generation. If you'd like to learn more about me or my book, Stories That Shape Us, visit steve-mann.com, where you can download a free bonus chapter on discussing controversial issues with family and friends, something most of us tend to avoid. You can also share your own stories or attributes you'd like to see us cover here on the channel. Join us next time as we continue exploring how the stories from your life can become a gift of experience for others. And if this episode resonated with you, please subscribe and invite someone you care about to join you. Also, please send us a note on how you are sharing your wisdom with your children and grandchildren. Remember, you can make a difference.